Have you ever thought that the seemingly terrifying monsters on screen could become one of the most beloved families of the 1960s? The Munsters is a prime example. Released in 1964, the film reversed all familiar definitions, instead of instilling fear. The grotesque characters brought gentle laughter and a warm feeling of a very close-knit family. But the most interesting thing isn't just the humorous episodes, but also what happened behind the scenes where the lives of the cast members underwent unexpected, even dramatic, changes after the lights went out. In today's video, we'll explore these little-known stories. If you find this content interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next fascinating behind-the-scenes stories. And please leave a comment below. Which character from the Munsters left the deepest impression on you? Clyde Thornton isn't the kind of character who stands out or constantly steals the spotlight in the Munsters. But he plays a crucial role in balancing and illogical the world of the film. He represents the perspective of outside society, where everything is judged by reason, norms, and skepticism. While the Munster family views oddities as a normal part of everyday life, Clyde is the one who brings the story back to reality. He appears as a natural reaction of the logical world, confused, wary, and sometimes completely unable to explain what's happening before his eyes. This very contrast contributes to the film's humor, as there's always someone who can't understand what's considered normal in the Munster household. What makes Clyde memorable isn't his grand actions, but his small yet impactful reactions, a look of astonishment, a serious expression at the absurd, or moments of inexplicable silence. All these details become the material for the humor. To achieve this, Chet Stratton maintained an extremely serious demeanor in a world built on inherent illogicality, and it was this very seriousness that created the most natural comedic effect. Although not the central figure, Stratton belonged to the group of background actors, those who didn't need to be overly prominent, but helped make the entire world on screen more convincing. He appeared in several other television projects before his death in 1970, ending a relatively short artistic journey that nonetheless left a lasting mark on the memory of classic sitcoms. Looking back, Clyde Thornton was more than just a supporting character. He served as a benchmark for the outside world, highlighting the Munster family's uniqueness while simultaneously adding humor to every situation. Because sometimes, the laughter doesn't come from the strangeness itself, but from the way a completely serious person tries to understand the inexplicable. Grandpa Munster is one of the most distinctly chaotic characters in the Munsters, both a grandfather figure and a catalyst for unpredictable and hilarious situations. With a classic vampire-like appearance, but a mischievous, adaptable, and sometimes unpredictable personality, he constantly livens up the Munster household in a way no one can control. Grandpa's appeal doesn't lie in his spells or bizarre basement inventions, but in his approach to life as an exciting adventure. Troubles that might be bothersome to others are a form of entertainment for him. From creating experiments, no one else dares to try to interfering with plans to help Eddie. He often appears just when things start to go wrong, and more than once, his appearance only exacerbates the chaos in the most comical way. Despite his mischievous and somewhat eccentric appearance, Grandpa played a crucial role in binding the entire Munster family together. Behind his jokes and antics lay genuine care, especially for Eddie, his young nephew who needed guidance in a world of his own. This blend of playful mischief and familial affection made the character both humorous and deeply emotional. Grandpa was brilliantly portrayed by Al Lewis, who left a distinct mark. Lively, unconventional, yet undeniably captivating. Even after the series ended, he maintained a strong connection with fans and frequently participated in nostalgic meet-and-greet events. Although he passed away in 2006, Grandpa Munster remains remembered as a unique symbol of humor, warmth, and family affection in an unmistakable way. Dr. Lindbach is a brief cameo in the Munsters. but he leaves a lasting impression as a representative of the scientific and logical world when confronted with a family where extraordinary events occur as commonplace. Despite his limited screen time, his presence is enough to alter the familiar rhythm of the film's humor. The most noteworthy aspect of this character lies in his reaction to the absurd. Upon entering the Munster house, Dr. Lindbach seems to lack a clear course of action. Believe what he sees, reject it, or attempt a scientific explanation. This struggle between reason and the bizarre reality makes him a catalyst for laughter, as the more serious his reactions become. The funnier they appear in the absurd context. The role is played by Harvey Korman, known for his subtle comedic style. Relying more on restraint than exaggeration, a single glance, a well-timed pause, or a subtle reaction was enough for him to create a comedic effect without disrupting the story's structure. Later, Harvey Korman became one of the iconic figures of American television comedy, and even though he passed away in 2008, he is still remembered as an artist capable of leaving a lasting impression in just a few short but highly effective moments. Lily Munster in the Munsters is seen as the balancing heart of the family. If the Munster house is a series of absurd situations, Lily is the element that keeps everything stable without fuss, without imposing, but always there at the right time to restore harmony. What makes Lily special is the way she confronts everything around her, the strangest situations from Grandpa's incomprehensible ideas. Herman's clumsiness to Eddie's very innocent emotions are all handled by her with almost absolute calmness. It is this attitude of viewing the unusual as a natural part of life that creates the comedic effect. As the audience realizes that in this world, the abnormal is actually normal, the role of Lily is portrayed by Yvonne De Carlo, who brings to the character a harmonious blend of classic Gothic beauty and the warmth of a mother. She was not only captivating in appearance, but also exuded maturity and stability. Gentle enough to love and strong enough to protect her family when necessary, before joining the series. Yvonne De Carlo had a significant film career, but it was the role of Lily Munster that made her an icon. Forever etched in the television memories of many generations, she passed away in 2007. But Lily's image remains remembered as the most important emotional anchor for this special family. Warren Bloom isn't the kind of character designed to be the central figure in the Munsters. He appears briefly and concisely. Yet he perfectly captures the essence of the outside world, a world governed by logic, norms, and a certain reserve toward the inexplicable. The role is played by John Fiedler when he's around 39 years old. Fiedler doesn't need to be flashy or dramatic. His small stature, slightly anxious voice, and demeanor, always seemingly in a space of his own, make Warren Bloom unforgettable. He's the kind of character whose presence instantly changes the atmosphere not through grand gestures, but through a very natural and genuine sense of unease. In the world of the Munsters, where the illogical are taken for granted, Warren Bloom serves as an external benchmark. He reacted in the way a normal person would, initially polite, then suspicious, and finally in a state of uncertainty about what to believe. This very confusion inadvertently made the Munster family, despite being considered unconventional, more relatable and emotionally resonant. John Fiedler later went on to have a long and successful acting career spanning decades, particularly excelling in supporting roles and voice acting. He was the kind of actor who didn't need a long screen time to be memorable. When he passed away in 2005, he left behind a quiet but significant legacy, the image of small, unassuming characters who, despite their few words, always contributed to making the world on screen more vibrant and profound. Eddie Munster is the youngest character in the Munsters, yet one of the most memorable, the werewolf boy. Played by Butch Patrick at around 11 years old, presents a unique image, a child growing up among a family of monsters, but possessing incredibly simple and relatable emotions. What makes Eddie memorable is his natural inner world as a child. a longing for friends, a desire to fit in, and sometimes feeling lost because of his differences. However, within the Munster family, these very differences become commonplace. This contrast creates many moments that are both humorous and emotionally rich, as everyday issues like being teased by friends or feeling lonely at school are portrayed in a strange yet heartwarming way. What makes Eddie's story so endearing isn't the bizarre situations, but the unwavering love and acceptance he receives from his family. No one tries to change him, and no one sees him as different in that home. Eddie is simply Eddie, and it is this understanding that makes the character a lasting message about family and acceptance. In real life, Butch Patrick has also been closely associated with Eddie for many years. Although he no longer appears frequently in film projects, he still participates in fan meet-and-greet events and nostalgic reunions. To this day, Eddie Munster remains an important part of his life's journey as a symbol of childhood, of uninhibited differences, and of the feeling of being loved for who you truly are. Herman Munster is the spiritual center of the family in the Munsters, a character with a massive, almost Frankenstein-like appearance, yet possessing a gentle, warm, and affectionate personality. At first glance, Herman might seem intimidating. But the more you get to know him, the more you realize he's a loving husband and father who is wholeheartedly devoted to his family. The most interesting aspect of Herman is the stark contrast between his outward appearance and his inner self. Despite his intimidating looks, he has a naive, kind heart and always strives to do everything as meticulously as possible. However, these efforts often lead to hilarious situations, creating the film's characteristic comedic energy and highlighting the warmth of the Munster family life. Beyond simply providing humor, Herman Munster conveyed a simple yet profound message. A person's worth doesn't lie in their outward appearance. In that unique home, he was always protective, always optimistic, and believed that all difficulties could be overcome with sincerity, even if his methods were sometimes clumsy and beyond imagination. Thanks to Fred Gwynne's portrayal, Herman Munster became an unforgettable icon of 1960s television, a monster with the heart of an ideal father, bringing both laughter and a deep, humanistic impact to viewers. Mr. Gateman is a very distinctive cameo in the Munsters. He appears like a fleeting Gothic breath, stepping straight into the sitcom setting where bizarre things have become commonplace. This very contrast allows Gateman to make a strong impression, even with minimal screen time. Like a classic horror piece, accidentally dropped into a world of a monster family that is nonetheless full of everyday life. The role was played by John Carradine when he was around 58 years old. Carradine possesses the characteristic style of classic cinema, a deep, clear, and weighty voice, and a presence that carries weight even when he doesn't act much. In the context of the Munsters, where absurdity occurs constantly and naturally, this almost absolute seriousness becomes the element that creates the most subtle humor, because all his reactions are too formal compared to the world around him. Mr. Gateman, therefore, is not merely a supporting character, but a clear aesthetic point of contrast. He highlights the film's reversal, where the horror elements become harmless, and the monster family takes on a human quality. John Carradine, with a career spanning from stage to film, brought the spirit of classic Gothic cinema to this role. When he died in 1988, he left behind the image of an artist capable of appearing only briefly, yet making the entire screen space more profound, where the boundary between fear and laughter is almost blurred. Marilyn Munster in the Munsters is a fascinating paradox, amidst a family considered monsters. She is the only one who appears completely normal, ironically. It is this very normality that makes her the most unique person in her own home. What makes Marilyn special isn't her attempts to attract attention, but the feeling that she constantly stands on the boundary between two worlds, not truly belonging to either. To the outside world, the Munster family is strange. Within the family, Marilyn is the only one who doesn't fit in. This reversal makes her a silent question throughout the film. What truly is normal, instead of being marginalized? Marilyn becomes a delicate balancing force for the entire family. She doesn't react harshly, doesn't judge, and doesn't try to change her loved ones. She quietly exists between two worlds: on one side, rigid social norms. On the other, a chaotic yet affectionate monster family. And it is this very presence that helps both sides understand and accept each other more easily. Through various stages, from Beverly Owen to Pat Priest taking on the role, Marilyn has maintained that same essence. Gentle, patient, and with a touch of loneliness in her feeling of not truly belonging. She isn't the character who elicits the most laughter, but rather a moment of emotional stillness where the audience realizes that sometimes normality can also become a different form of difference, and because of this, Marilyn Munster is not simply the normal girl in the monster family, but also a symbol of harmony and understanding. She reminds us that sometimes you don't need to be like anyone else. Just enough tolerance to accept and remain amidst things that are different from yourself. Dr. Edward Dudley's appearance in The Munsters isn't like a conventionally introduced character, but rather an unexpected fracture that disrupts the film's familiar rhythm in a brief moment. He directly confronts the chaotic and irrational world of the Munster family with rigid human logic, and this very clash becomes the source of the humor. The role is played by Paul Lynde, who is around 38 years old. He doesn't portray a doctor in the usual serious manner, but transforms each line of dialogue into a series of rapid, sharp reactions. Quick, sharp, and always seemingly trying to suppress his bewilderment at what defies reason, instead of maintaining control. Lynde pushes this emotion further, gradually transforming the initial seriousness into a unique form of comedy. Within the structure of the Munsters, characters like Dr. Dudley acts as a reality anchor. They bring the perspective of the outside world, to contrast with the absurdity within 1313 Mockingbird Lane. However, with Paul Lynde, that anchor doesn't stand still. It vibrates, deviating from its original trajectory and transforming into a rhythmic reaction, where every glance, every pause carries as much weight as the dialogue. Later, Paul Lynde became one of America's most recognizable television comedians, the kind of artist who, in just a few minutes, can completely change the atmosphere of a scene. He died in 1982 at the age of 55. But his performance style remains a clear testament that in comedy, power sometimes lies not in lengthy dialogue, but in the ability to react precisely in a way that is irreplaceable. Fanny Pike appears for only a very brief moment in The Munsters, but it's enough to disrupt the familiar world of the Munster family. She brings with her the norms of normal life, something that, in this house, becomes strangely comical. It's noteworthy that Fanny doesn't need much time to be clearly portrayed. The episode doesn't delve into lengthy explanations, but lets her reactions drive the story. Surprise, awkwardness, and sometimes disbelief at a world where monsters behave more kindly and approachably than ordinary humans. This reversal is what creates the series' signature humor. The role is played by Jane Withers when she was around 38 years old. With her early acting experience, she is able to define a character within minutes of her appearance clearly, naturally and without exaggeration. Her career, spanning many eras of Hollywood, made her a memorable part of American entertainment history. Jane Withers passed away in 2021 at the age of 95. But her mark lives on in brief but impactful cameo appearances such as Fanny Pike. Mr. Bradley in The Munsters is a quintessential representation of the outside world, a world governed by rules, order, and seriousness, always trying to regulate a family that lives by completely opposite logic. His presence is like an invisible layer of pressure, constantly pulling situations back into the normal framework. Willis Bouchy took on the role when he was around 57 years old. He didn't need lengthy dialogues or dramatic actions. With his decisive voice, dignified demeanor, and authoritative calmness, Bradley perfectly embodied the image of judgment and control from the outside world. However, It is precisely this almost absolute seriousness that becomes the source of humor, as it constantly clashes with a world where absurdity is considered commonplace. Willis Bauchi was familiar with playing official or authoritative figures in film and television, and he brought all that credibility to the character of Bradley. This made the contrast between him and the Munster family even more striking. The more disciplined and proper they were, the more chaotic and unpredictable their world became. He died in 1977. But roles like Bradley still demonstrate how a supporting actor can contribute to a more cohesive, sharp and effective comedic structure. And that's the journey of looking back at the world of the Munsters, where the monsters bring more warmth than the concept of normal we're used to. Each character, whether central or just a fleeting appearance, contributes a small part to creating a complete picture. That differences aren't something to be feared, but sometimes they bring people closer together. A long time may have passed since 1964. Many faces are no longer present, many names have become memories, yet what they left behind gentle laughter, subtle satire, and a message about family remains just as valuable whenever we look back. The Munsters is not simply a sitcom, but a unique way of telling a story about family bonds amidst seemingly incompatible circumstances. If you've followed the video this far, thank you for taking the time for this journey back in time. Leave a comment about the character that you remember most, and if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next journeys where we continue to explore memories that still live on in the world of classic cinema.